What is up, everyone? So today we have some hardened projectiles, Grimberg, Wrap 4, and some round ball from eBay. And we have two barrels here, the Nemesis rifled barrel and the Lapco smooth bore barrel. Okay, we're gonna go over these dimensional sizes of these projectiles and how they correspond with these barrels here, and some of the issues that I encountered when purchasing a rifled barrel, and the things you should consider when you're combining a rifled barrel with shaped projectiles or just hard projectiles in general. So let's get into this review and see what it's all about. Okay, so let's get some measurements on these projectiles, some accurate measurements. Okay. We'll start with the eBay specials. These measure out at 67875, okay? And as I rotate it, 67875 is that diameter. So this is an accurate way to measure, okay? The Grimbergs measure at their tip, okay? So there's a little bit of a parting line on this edge here, but that's what we want to measure. So these measure at 0.68320, okay? Let's measure the rear. So at the farthest distance on the back, you're looking at 0.68130, okay? So I measured this first and then now this, and then for the length, we'll measure it on these calipers. 0.674, 6745, okay? Now for the Wrap 4, we'll measure these out. You're looking at 0.6776. 0.67705, and then for the length, 0.670 in length, okay? These fins are gonna be a little bit hard to measure because this is thinner around this bezel here, so it does flex. So I'll do it with the calipers just so that way I don't, or you know what, we'll try it with the mics and then the calipers as well. Just get a few different measurements. Yeah, these mics are crushing it. So we'll just do it with the calipers. Uh, 0.678, and take that with a grain of salt because this could be all messed up. All right. So those are the measurements. Now let's get to weighing these, okay? So what we'll do is I'll add this to here so it holds it. We'll turn it on and we'll do the tare. We're doing it in grams, okay? So this unit of measure is 3.66 grams, okay? 3.66 grams. I'll take this off and see if we get the same thing. I'll tare it. 3.66 grams. So it's the same with or without that, all right? Now we'll try the Grimberg. We'll tare it again just to be on the safe side. Your Grimbergs are looking at 7.49 grams. So these are not 5 grams, they're 7.49, okay? Do it again. 7.49, okay? Now for the Wrap 4s, 2.89 grams, okay? And these are gonna be definitely weighted in the near future, so stay tuned for that if you're interested on how I optimize these and turn them into some heavy hitters, okay? It's all experimental, you know, for fun and for science here, okay? I'm gonna be weighting these to be heavier, okay? And I got a 3D printed jig, so that way I could gauge distance and depth here. And what I'm gonna try to do is, as you can see, Grimberg, they left their flange a lot thicker here to allow for weight, okay? And these projectiles here are thinner on the fins in this area, okay? But what this is gonna allow me to do is weight this how I wanna weight it, okay? This is kind of set, and I believe you might need that air pocket for flight efficiency. So that way the air could kind of accumulate inside and create a turbulent effect. This is all speculation. I don't have no like flow simulation to generate that flow for the air. Whereas this is the same thing, but a lot wider, right? So the same concept, but what I'm gonna do is I got a jig I'm gonna finish up and get 3D print it. I have a sample, but I'm gonna perfect it a little bit better. And it's gonna allow me to drill down into this with a ball end mill and or a spherical end mill and create a pocket. And then I could load it up with different weights, okay? So like lead shot, steel, or even bismuth, okay? To create different weights of projectiles. And it will allow me to set that weight on different planes. So I could either go here, here, or all the way forward. And what that's going to allow me to do is see how that stabilizes the projectile in flight, okay? Because you don't want something nose heavy where it tumbles. You don't want something rear heavy where it yaws before it exits the barrel, you know? So maybe centering up that mass is the way to go, but also keeping in mind that it is a little bit nose heavy, or it should be, because this is solid up front and this is hollow. So I got to play around with the geometry of that to see how this will actually fly through the air, okay? So these are all just my thoughts on how it's going to react, you know, but there's a reason why this is solid up front and it doesn't continue all the way back, okay? So that's going to be captured, and I hope to get a projectile that's moving, you know, at a higher higher feet per second and create a lot more joule energy upon impact, and see what happens. I think the bismuth stuff, or even like a lead shot, may be really good because it'll act as a dead blow hammer, I'm hoping. So upon impact, it creates that dead blow effect and sends all that energy into that location, okay? So that's my thoughts behind that. So stay tuned for updates. Okay, so let's take this tip off real quick so we could measure the actual inside. This is the smooth bore. You're looking at 0.687. 0.687, so exactly 0.687 for this size. Okay, the smooth bore, and we'll take measurements as far as the length. So you're looking at 8.5 inches in length, and you're looking at 1 inch from here to this piece right here where it starts crowning. And then for the threads, you're looking at a 1/2 inch thread distance, all right? And then for what it's worth, you're looking at about 1 inch in diameter for the entire thing here, okay? For your tip, you're looking at 2.5 inches by 1.25 inches here. And then this piece right here is about 1 inch, okay? And then it's 3/4 from here to here. Okay, so for the Lapco barrel, let's take the measurements. We'll use the calipers. You're looking at 3.453 in length, so 3.5 inches, basically, okay? For the diameter, since it does go from a large diameter to a smaller diameter, you're looking at 0.927, which is close to 1 inch, okay? And then I'll use the tape measure to rough this out. Okay, you're looking at, for the length here, you're looking about 10 inches, about 10 inches in length, okay? And you got to remember, if you're running a T15, you're going to need the adapter to go to this style connector with these grooves that are cut out on here. And that's going to be about 2.5 inches or whatnot. So you'll have 2.5 inches on here, but remember, it's going to thread onto the barrel. So this will take up, let's see, about 1.25 inches. So this will take about 1.25 inches off of the total length of the adapter. So instead of say 2.5, you're going to be looking at like 1.5 or a little less than 1.5. Okay. And then you got 5/8 thread here when we screw all this together. And the reason why I'm taking this measurement for you is so that way you can decide what length barrel you need for your T15 if you're doing the CQB or the extended edition. And I'll show you why I chose the little bit longer one, okay? This is 12 3/4, okay? In total length. So this is going to add another 3 inches to the overall length of your barrel is what they say. But remember, the threads take up a little bit, so that 3.5 will bring it down to 3 because they thread on. So it's a little bit longer, but it's going to recess in. Okay. Okay, so you may be wondering why I chose the 10-inch barrel over an 8-inch barrel. Okay. And there's a few things to consider, okay? For one, the mock suppressor, or not mock suppressor, but this, the control bore here to the tip, this tip is gonna be removed, so I won't get 3 inches of tip, okay? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna design a suppressor that will go over here, thread over this, okay? So this tip affects performance. So if you don't have this tip and you had, say, an 8-inch barrel, well, that's going to cut off some of the bore here, okay? And this helps stabilize everything. You know, the longer your barrel, it kind of helps stabilize everything. And I'll go over that and the porting and stuff as well. But what I wanted to do is, since I was going to remove this, I wanted a longer barrel, right, to kind of even out the distance of this one and the 8-inch barrel for my CQB. Okay, yeah, it's gonna have a little bit more addition to the rear because I have that adapter. But what I wanted to do is, this is kind of like right at the end of the foregrip, and my hand kind of gets in the way of that. Like this, I'm a little bit taller than, you know, most people. Okay, I'm 6'2", 6'3", around there. So, you know, I got a larger wingspan. So when I grip the gun, I kind of tend to protrude my hand a little bit further out. And so my knuckles are about right where the foregrip ends. And this is about right where the foregrip ends, okay? So by adding a little bit extra length here, it's gonna allow it to stick out that much further at the end. And then I'm gonna design a suppressor where it goes over this, and then it's gonna track backwards. So it won't affect the performance of the barrel. So when this goes on, it affects the performance of the barrel in a good way because you're extending the barrel. But since I'm going to be designing a suppressor, it's not going to be precision made out of aluminum. It's going to be made out of a 3D printed model, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here so that way I get maximum performance of the barrel. And this is a controlled barrel length versus this tip where it jumps up to 0.692, okay? So the control bore is not on the tip, it's the barrel itself. So I figure by lengthening the barrel, I could remove the tip and get better performance out of it, okay? And then I could put on my fake suppressor and move it backwards so that way it's into the grip further, so it looks, you know, like I got a stubby barrel in there for aesthetics. And it won't affect the performance. I'll actually gain performance because the rifling is longer versus if I were to get the 8-inch barrel and then have this back here, this won't perform as good as the barrel itself, okay? So that's why I went with the longer barrel. And it's pretty close to the same length as this. Once the little additions here, it's gonna extend out a little bit further, okay? So that's the thought process. behind getting the 10-inch barrel. So given the fact that maybe the potential of these portings is to alleviate the air pressure as it exits the barrel for your projectile so it doesn't create a yaw. That's also why real muzzles on guns, they have a crown on the end, okay? That's to allow the gases to expel outward and kind of not interrupt the flight that the projectile is gonna have, okay? Whereas this barrel in particular doesn't have that, okay? It's just a straight cut. And that might be why they're porting it, to compensate for what they don't have up front, okay? Maybe they didn't think about that. A barrel like this, right? It has your control bore in the center and then it starts flaring out like a V, okay? And maybe that's why this one maybe performed better, because it allows those the air to actually escape through the sides versus ports. And maybe that's why it has this, okay? I don't know to the extent that these companies go into for seeing if a barrel works properly or not, or if they just build something, get a control bore size, and then shoot them and then check them that way, or if they actually have software that gives them flow analysis for the pressures that they're producing behind the gun and trying to optimize it that way. Hammerhead's another brand that the rifling looks exact to the Nemesis, but it's not in performance. So remember that if you pay a little bit cheaper because you're buying the Hammerhead, the performance is not going to be nearly as good as the Nemesis. There's videos that show the groupings of the Nemesis versus Hammerhead. So go ahead and check that out on YouTube as well if you don't believe me, okay? This Nemesis I was having high hopes for, but one issue I found is there's grooves right here that circle this whole barrel and extend from here to here, all right? I don't know what that's from. That kind of bummed me out because I don't know if those grooves dimpled the inside or even potentially bowed the barrel. I don't know, and I'm not going to take a chance, so I got to send this back and get a replacement. Okay, so let's measure out this Nemesis barrel, okay? So you're looking at, let me turn these on. It's kind of weird because I got to miss the rifling, okay? You're looking at 0.682. 0.684, 0.682, so 0.6825 to be exact, to 0.684. Remember, these barrels are not going to be perfect spherical. Okay, they're going to be pretty close, but they're not going to be perfect, all right? And then to where the grooves are, it's a little bit weird to measure. I don't think I'll get this measurement. I don't think it'll be possible because the grooves spiral. Yeah, I won't be able to get them because as they spiral, you know, they're kind of offsetting each other and rising up. This one's going down. So I can't get that measurement, okay? But that's that dimension. And then let's measure this barrel tip here. So you're looking at 0.691, 0.6915. Okay, so now let's see how the projectiles fit into each one of these barrels, okay? So we'll start with the Raging Donkey tip. So it falls in and it's super loose, okay? So there's no control bore on here that's even remotely closed. Okay, so now we'll see the control bore on the tip for the Grimbergs, okay? That just falls through. Now the Rap 4, let's see, that one just fell through as well. I mean, there's no control bore of this tip whatsoever. Okay, so let's check the control bore. So that fell through really easily, okay? We'll try the Grimbergs, okay? I'll put it in from the muzzle down just because I could I could see it dropping. It's a little bit smoother versus if I flip it the other way. Okay, and this, the little fingers will touch, so the projectile won't be allowed to slide in as easily. Okay, so that dropped in. Okay, there's a little bit of friction in there. I don't know if you can see that. I'll try to get an up close image of that. All right, let me push it out with my dowel. And then now let's check these. Okay, the shape projectiles, the first strike style, they start gaining friction at the very beginning, okay? Whereas the Grimbergs, they kind of drop down about midway before they gripped. And these are already gripping, okay? See if they'll slide through. So yeah, they'll slide through. We'll do the same for this. They'll slide through. So both of these should utilize the velocity from the air pretty efficient. They're your standard bore, okay? What makes these two projectiles different is the fins here. You want this to rotate, so that way it creates a spiral, kind of like when you throw a football, it spirals, okay? Versus this is like a slug without any fins, so it's not gonna really spin. Keep in mind all these measurements when checking the barrel here, the barrel tip and stuff with all these projectiles. This barrel, this Nemesis barrel, and even this Lapco barrel is designed for paintball. So everything's designed around first strike for like the Nemesis, and then this one's designed around round ball, okay? So these projectiles have to come in the vicinity of those measurements in order for them to like get a good seal, okay? All right, so let's try round ball in this Nemesis barrel. It does not fit, okay? As you can see, this thing does not get pushed in there. And we'll try this one first, and then I'll tell you the reason why, okay? This Grimberg cannot fit in there this way. It seats in there a little bit, and it does not fit as well. So you can't shoot any of these projectiles out of this barrel, okay? See if this one fits. It fits. It fits really snug though, okay? Like I gotta literally push that through, and I don't know if that will even shoot through. So as you can see, it fits perfect, okay? And there's friction on it. If this thing shoots out of this barrel, this thing is gonna have a good seal. This thing does fit in there really nicely, but it was designed for first strikes. These are test projectiles, okay? So they're designed for testing. So I'm gonna have to try that, okay, to make sure. So let's get into the reasons why this will not allow you to shoot the Grimbergs or this projectile setup, okay? So your control bore is typically the bore of the barrel of its smooth bore, right? And that's how tight it's gonna fit around each projectile, okay? Then you get into rifling, and I thought the same thing, and I thought the rifling would have been milled into, into the actual tube itself, but instead it's actually extruded into the tube. So this rifling, as it wraps all the way around the barrel, it's not indented into the barrel, it's extruded outward, okay? So just like these fins, how these fins have a rib here all the way around, you got these fins going this way, they're not cut into the material, they're extruded out of the material. Same thing with this. So it's even smaller of a bore, okay? So your tube is a regular tube size, and then you have the spiral, which is even smaller here, so they extend out into this gap. and that prevents projectiles like this from going through. Okay, so on first strike rounds, the hammerhead barrel is not as good as the Nemesis, but maybe the reason for that, and I haven't had the chance to have a Nemesis or a hammerhead barrel in my hands to actually inspect it, but maybe the reason for that, now that I'm thinking of it, is because the twist rate here is actually extruded out of the material, so that way you could have the actual twist digging into the projectile your first strike rounds, whereas the hammerhead may be removed material, so maybe the twist rate is actually etched into the metal, and that's why it's not spinning these as fast, or maybe not stabilizing them as good for your normal first strike rounds. But if that's the case, that might be a good thing for us guys who are trying to use it for home defense, because these hard rounds, like these Grimbergs, may benefit from that, okay? And it may allow that twist to actually, you know, just capture enough of this diameter to make it twist, okay? Whereas this barrel won't even allow it to go through, because those fins, or that twist rate, is digging into the material instead of allowing the material to flow into the cutaway. All right, so things to consider, things to think about. I'm gonna do some more research and look into that because that's really something I'm interested in now that I'm thinking of it. Okay, for the muzzle itself, we know that the twist rate here actually extrudes inward, and people are saying that this affects the barrel a lot. So if you did not have this, for paintball at least, if you didn't have this, it would not perform as good. So there's two thoughts on that, okay? So you know the reason why I got a longer barrel, so I got a 10-inch instead of a 12-inch, because removing this, I figured I'd have a better control bore for a longer period of time before the projectile exits out of the muzzle, giving me a more stable shot, right? But then there's also another thought where maybe these ports here, because what a port does is it allows for stability. So when you shoot a weapon, real gun, your muzzle rises, okay? It's to control muzzle lift, okay? And then also blast mitigation for noise travel and all that stuff. But maybe in this instance, what it does is as that projectile exits the barrel, right? This thing has all that pressure built up, and then it poofs out, right? So maybe that that buildup of air creates a turbulent, or creates some inconsistent exiting, okay? So when it exits, it might hit a lip or something and create a yaw, right? Changing the path of the projectile. Whereas this porting, as it exits, might alleviate that pressure, so that way it's all in the projectile, so the projectile still has the ability to stabilize through this distance before it exits, and doesn't have to worry about any air causing it to hit a certain defect in the projectile, causing it to yaw. So that's just a thought, that's not proven, but that's one of my thoughts on why people are saying, oh, this muzzle has to do a lot with the performance of this barrel as well. Okay, so keep that in mind as well. If your barrel doesn't perform good because you remove this, which I'm gonna do, and if it doesn't perform well, then I gotta reattach this and utilize this somehow. But my barrel will be a lot longer. Also, a longer barrel gives you more power, okay? So the longer the barrel, the more power you have. You get to a point where a barrel's too long and it creates additional drag that you don't need on your projectile as it's exiting. So then it could be actually a bad thing if your barrel's too long. But typically, the maximum performance is around 12 to 14 inches for a paintball barrel, okay? So this is 10 inches, so it's not gonna harm you. It's just gonna give you a higher velocity, okay? So those are my thoughts on barrels. So that's my take on the barrel performance and how it's gonna pair up with your projectiles. So take it with a grain of salt. I'm still learning along with you guys, I'm sure. And knowledge is key. You know, the more knowledge you have, the better prepared you are in that purchasing realm and what's going to benefit you at the end of the day. Okay, so that's going to complete today's video. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. It's greatly appreciated. If you enjoyed this content and you want to see content like it, consider subscribing. Until next time, I'll see y'all in the next one. Thanks for watching.